Antony was signed by United for an absolutely colossal 95 million euros, having starred in the Netherlands for the past 2 seasons. Ten Hag had just arrived and he'd managed Antony before, so after getting bent over by Brentford, they needed to make a statement, thus bringing out the war chest for him. But after his famous debut goal and subsequent screamer versus Man City, Antony became a total flop, producing basically nothing and just turning into a massive meme. He was a fidget spinner, he was the next James Bond, he had his aura forming glare, and he had tons of other moments. But after the GOAT went to Real Betis, things took a massive turn. His first 6 months there was something you only see in cinema, and after returning there permanently, Antony is now a star in Spain and on one of the best redemption arcs in football. Tanguy Ndombele was Spurs' marquee signing of 2019, as they paid a club record fee for their next midfield maestro. But while he had started at Lyon and had the talent to become one of the best in the world, his time at my favorite club was marked by zero effort and care. He was seemingly always overweight and at times would just walk around the pitch, and it was so frustrating with him because randomly he'd just give us these absolute moments of magic. These were just moments though, and overall he never got it together, getting booed off the field in his final game for us and thereafter getting loaned out as we tried to get rid of him fully. So after a couple loan spells at the likes of Napoli and Galatasaray, where he again was caught eating some burgers and fries, Ndombele is now at Nice, just being a bench player for them. Niklas Fullkrug had been a sensation in Germany, convincing West Ham to spend £27 million on him. He was meant to become their reliable main number 9, as he impressed in the 2024 Euros and helped Dortmund reach the CL final while being a great physical presence. But questions were asked of the fee as he was 31 years old at the time, and the 4-year contract he signed looked a little bit garbage after he only got 3 goals in his first year there. This was partially due to injury though, so there was hope that he'd turn good, but unfortunately that didn't happen and he got injured once again, putting up a goose egg in goals this season. So now he's loaned out to Milan, where he looks like a shell of himself, and because of his age and fitness, it now looks like the Hammers won't be able to recoup that money. Fabio Silva to Wolves was a very bizarre signing, as the Portuguese team of England spent 40 million euros on him when he was just 18 years old. And this would be kinda justified if he had been performing, but the young kid had only ever started 1 league game in his career, so lots of people thought some George Mendes finesse was going on. So because he was so young, he obviously didn't play much in his first couple seasons there, just coming off the bench sometimes and not making an impact at all. But I guess somehow he ended up developing some skills because he had some solid loans at Anderlecht and PSV afterwards, and then ended up at Las Palmas where he actually played very well. So after that loan spell, Wolves decided to cash in and sold him to Dortmund, so he is now a promising player but never had any production for the club that spent 40 M's on him. Jack Rodwell was Sunderland's play to move beyond its status of being a relegation level side, as he'd been a quality starter for Everton as a teenager. His big transfer to Man City was heavily hampered by injury, and while some people were wary of paying him 70k a week, the Black Cats were hoping that the skill and talent was still there. But this contract stupidly did not include a relegation wage reduction clause, so as Rodwell played horribly and Sunderland went down, his massive wages destroyed them from the inside, and his refusal to leave or take some sort of a pay cut made it impossible for Sunderland to rebuild their squad, setting them back for years and making him public enemy number 1. So after he finally left on the expiry of that deal, he just bounced around various different clubs and countries, ending his career in Australia at just 34 years of age. Jean-Kevin Augustine was signed to address Leeds' striker hole at the time, as their loanee Eddie Nketiah had been suddenly recalled mid-season. He first came in on loan as a very exciting young talent, but after only playing 3 games, this transfer turned into maybe the worst deal in all of football history. So essentially there was an 18 mil obligation to buy if Leeds got promoted that year, but they didn't want to do this because obviously he sucked for them. And they tried to dispute the clause, saying that the pandemic had delayed their promotion past the June 30 loan expiration, but the courts disagreed and Leeds lost their appeal. The result was that they had to pay Leipzig 15.5 mil as a settlement, but then also had to pay Augustine another 24.5 mil for breaching his contract. So overall, they paid 40 million for 49 minutes of football. So yeah, this was actually like a worse financial circumstance than those degenerate sports gamblers who bet on the 4th tier Kenyan league, and after many injury-riddled seasons, Augustine is a free agent at 28. Davy Klaassen came in as a superstar from Ajax, and Evertonians believed he'd be the catalyst for a push into the European spots. He had just captained Ajax to the Europa League final and got 20 goals and 12 assists as a midfielder last season, but unfortunately for the Toffees, this all disappeared at Goodison. In his one and only Everton season, he failed to adapt to the Prem, struggling with the pace and physicality and only making 16 appearances, not because he was injured, but just because he was trash. So after buying him for 27 mil, though, Everton immediately sold him for half the price to Werder Bremen, where he instantly returned to form and had a very solid 2 seasons. Then Ajax brought him back and he returned to being one of their better players, winning back-to-back league titles, which led to a last chance at Europe. But at Inter Milan, Klaassen was just a rotational option, and while he won the league there as well, he never became that top-class player, so as of the current day, he's back at Ajax once again. Ben Gibson was Burnley's record signing at the time, coming in for £15 million as a key defensive anchor. Burnley were on the up and had just actually finished 7th, so the Ginger Mourinho needed some real quality upgrades, and he looked to Gibson as the perfect target for his system. But while the fee was seen as a bargain at the time, Gibson vastly disappointed during his time at Turf Moor, having many injury issues and never breaking the Tarkowski partnership. So he only ever made 6 appearances for the club, even getting banished from the squad in the 6 months before he left, and he ultimately ended up moving to Norwich after 2 years. At Norwich though, Gibson seemingly found his level, as he was a solid starter for them in the championship for some time, also being a regular during their 1 season in the Prem. And after 4 seasons there, Gibson is now at Stoke, being their leader at the back, so he is a pretty decent player, but it just didn't work out at Burnley. Kostas Mitroglou was another club record signing, this time by Fulham for €15 million, as they were sat 19th in January and needed a savior from relegation. Mitroglou had been on fire in the Greek league for Olympiacos, having scored 17 and 19 so far that year, and Fulham were obviously desperate, so they shelled out the bags for him. But this 6-month period was an absolute disaster, as Mitroglou only ever played 3 games at Craven Cottage, arriving with a knee injury and failing to help them to safety. And then he was instantly placed on the chopping block, being loaned back to Olympiacos and then going to Benfica, where he actually got back to form and scored 20 goals on the season. This led to his second move to the top 5 leagues of Europe, as he was meant to become Marseille's new star striker, but he again failed to reach expectations and struggled to maintain consistency. So after bouncing around infinity clubs, Mitroglou actually found himself playing in the 9th tier of Germany, but the club was coached by his friend, so I guess he was just trying to chill with his boy. Mykhailo Mudryk was considered Ukraine's talent of a generation, being an electric left winger who Chelsea signed for up to €100 million. Everyone thought that he'd sign for Arsenal in that winter, as he'd been publicly flirting with them, only to sign with Chelsea last minute, so many people actually made fun of Arsenal for this. But after seeing the price tag and the 8.5-year contract Mudryk got, people began to reconsider a bit and wanted to see Mudryk actually play first. And his first game against Liverpool was actually pretty promising, but overall in his first 6 months, he also became James Bond and only ended up with 2 assists that year. He then developed a bit under new manager Pochettino, but it was clear that he was still a ways away from being a star, as his few good moments were followed by going invisible. But then in the next season, Mudryk failed the drugs test and was provisionally suspended while the case is still ongoing, leading to many jokes about him still being trashed with PEDs. So as of the current day, he remains under this suspension, having not played for over a year and now having rumors of him being an Uber driver or even switching to track. And yeah man, holy absolute travesty of a deal, because even if he didn't do it, he was still garbage when he did play, and it seems like he was only signed because Todd Bowley saw someone else wanted him. Part 2 is coming soon, so subscribe if you want to see that when it comes out. Comment below what you'd want to see next, and thank you for all the support so far.